All right, buenos dias, kiddos. All right, so we have one last grammar concept to cover in 8A. So this is called the personal I want to start by saying that this is going to be a little fancy for us because this concept doesn't exist in English. So sometimes when we learn something that, and we're going through and we're trying to translate sentences and go through in our mind and, try and translate everything, and it doesn't exist in English, and then it exists in Spanish, sometimes we forget about it. So we want to, kind of have this like in the back of our minds, like, hey, this exists. And, even when we're not practicing with it, this is something that is definitely an important grammar concept to have in the Spanish language. So even when we're not, specifically learning about it and taking notes, we want to make sure that we're continually, keeping this in the back of our minds, when we're speaking Spanish. Okay? So, kiddos, it says, look at these sentences. Let's compare these sentences, and some of the sentences have this personal I, and some of them won't. So let's look. Number one, it says, nosotros vimos el museo. Or excuse me, visitamos el museo. So it's saying that we visited the museum. No personal I there. But now over here it says, nosotros visitamos a nuestros amigos. So this one is saying that we visited our friends. We have an I there, okay, after the verb. Let's say the next one. It says, ¿viste una película en el cine? I'm asking you, did you see the movie at the theater? Okay, no personal I there. Where here, I'm using the same verb, ¿viste a Sofía en la clase de inglés? So once again, we have this I. Did you see Sophia in English class? So kiddos, here, when we visited a place or we saw a movie, right, we didn't have the personal I, but now look here. We visited our friends, and did you see Sophia? These are people, okay? If you guys remember back to chapter 7b, you guys learned about a direct object. A direct object was answering the question, who or what was receiving the action from the subject or the verb. So look here. It's saying that we visited. Who or what do we visit? Our friends. Here, did you see Sophia? Did you see who or what? Sophia. These are people, okay? So kiddos, in Spanish, whenever there is an action, okay, and then you have it, and it's going to be done on a person. So basically this action, I'm saying the direct object, okay, is a person or, and there's no example of this, but this is kind of fancy, okay, and the way I'm going to phrase it is a familiar animal. Okay? So basically, kiddos, what I'm talking about is like a pet. But maybe it's not exactly your pet, okay? So if you see a familiar animal, so what I'm talking about familiar is like your pet, something that like is known to you. Like you probably know its first name, something like that. It's not like, oh, hi, yesterday I was driving the car and I saw a bird. That bird has no meaning to you. You don't know that bird's name, okay? So that is not what I'm talking about. The a personnel is used with people, okay, and with familiar animals. Okay, and when we have the a personnel, that's our direct object, okay, it's going to be a person or familiar animal, we are going to put the a before, or excuse me, after, okay, after the verb, okay, so here you guys can notice, viste a, visitamos a, here we're putting it after the verb and the person who's then receiving the action, so that's the personal a. Okay, so once again, it's just clarifying to you guys that there is no equivalent to this personal I in English, but it is very important in Spanish. Not using an I when doing an action to a person sounds super uber strange in Spanish if you don't use it. Okay, so the next part here is we want to talk about what are maybe some verbs that we know that we're actually use this personal I a bunch of times. Okay. All right. So, for example, okay, like what we just saw up at the top, an AR verb that we're going to have would be the verb visitar, okay, because think about it. We visit, okay, people, okay, so that would be a logical, who or what do I visit? My mom, my friend, my dad, whatever, and that would be that we should use a personal I. Another one that we had was an ER verb, was that verb bear. A lot of times you see, okay, an animal that's familiar to you, you see a person, something like that. Okay. Another one that you guys have that we looked at before, okay, is this verb ayudar. Okay. Ayudar is the verb to help. A lot of times you want to say like, hey, I help my mom, I help my dad, something like that. Okay. So that would be another example of something that you guys would have there as well. Okay. So kiddos, those are some of the verbs that we're probably going to use the most this chapter, okay? And there are probably some other ones that you guys will see as well, okay? Now, the last little thing that we have here is that when you put it in question form, this is the way that I say this. If the is in the answer, we need to put the in the question, okay? So, here, when you want to figure out who receives the action of a verb, at the beginning of this, you are going to use the question word a quien. Alright? So, if the is in the question, alright, is in the answer, so I'm saying that I visited Hector, so if I want to ask who did you visit, I want to put the a quien visitaste. Remember, this doesn't have a direct translation in English. So, once again, over here, a quien viste en la fiesta anoche? Who did you see at the party last night? I saw Maria. Yo vi a Maria. And so, since the a is in the answer, we need to put the a in the question. Okay? So, chicos, if I want to ask you the question, who did you help? I want to, once again, the a for all of these is going to be in the answer, so we need to put the a in the question. So, it's going to be a quien, and then it's a did you help, so I'm going to have the AR verb ayudar, so it's going to be ayudaste. Alright? And so, a quien ayudaste, oops, sorry, this should be a question mark. Okay. Alright, then here, the next one, who did you visit? Once again, it should be a quien, good, okay? A quien, and then visit, so two for visitaste. Alright, and the last one, kiddos, try this one on your own, take a minute. So if I'm asking who did you see, so think about the example up at the top that we used, okay? How would I conjugate that? How would I translate this? Who did you see at the stadium last night? Well, I want to say I saw Miguel Cabrera. Woo! Alright, so, just like the previous two, how do you think we're going to start this? With the who, the is in the answer, we got to put the in the question, so we're going to have a, quien, and the last part is did you see, so we use that verb see, so that's ver, and put it in the to form, so it should be a quien viste, okay? So, remember, if the direct object with answers who or what, okay, of the subject, or excuse me, of the sentence, is either a person, okay, so either like a person's name or saying like the teacher, whatever, your friend, they're all people, okay, or a familiar animal, like a pet, something that you know its name, you need to make sure that you put the personal a after the verb, okay? The next page there, kiddos, you guys are going to see there are some practice pages, there's some practice questions where you guys need to read the sentences, decide if it needs the personal or not, okay? And I think we're good.